Hello everyone. Today I am in Bali and I want to talk to you about something that is very important, is how do we align in our aerial practice. So very often I see a lot of different core engagements in aerial, especially when we work into extensions, when we start doing front balance and other moves in aerial that require back bends. So I'm going to discuss with you some elements of your core work and your core alignments when you do your aerial practice. So let's dive in. Right, so the first thing I want you to be very aware of is when we do an invert, we have three important elements to follow. The first one is your upper body. Obviously, everything is mostly located in the upper body. The first one is going to be your shoulder engagement, which very often in an invert will mean depressing the shoulders, but also protracting. So when I explain to my student, the protraction of your shoulders is when you push the shoulders forward. That protraction very often starts activating a muscle called the serratus anterior. The serratus anterior is a big shoulder muscle that sits all the way at the back of your shoulder blades, and it kind of wraps around your rib cage. So I always call it like a little corset muscle. This corset muscle will brace your shoulder blades forward, and you are going to find the catalyst of your upper core engagement. So by using that shoulder protraction, your upper core and your rib cage they both are going to start to align with each other and engage. Okay. The second part, so if I, for example, I do a plank and I push forward, then you can see that my sternum is closing. So if I take a regular plank, my shoulders are neutral and I start protracting them, then you start observing that my core is actually engaging a lot more. Yes? So this is your protraction. One thing I want to note is a lot of us have got hyperactive traps, obviously, upper traps. That's not uncommon. And therefore, you have to be quite aware that you have to depress the shoulder blades as well. So making sure that you are kind of depressing the shoulder blades as you protract. So that might need a bit of practice, because a lot of people, especially when we do yoga, we do a lot of shoulder elevation movements. So a ground-based practice can often kind of exacerbate the elevation. And in aerial, often we want to try and depress slightly before we protract the shoulders. So that's why we kind of usually tell you to bring the shoulders down. Have the shoulders down and wrap the shoulder blades around the rib cage. Okay? The next part I want to approach, I'm not going to go up down. I'm actually going to speak about the lower part, is your hip flexion and your pelvic floor engagement. So obviously, quite a few of us have got tight hip flexor and lack engagement in the hip flexor. I made another video to try and explain how to do leg lifts a little bit more effectively for your aerial practice. With your hip flexor, you do want to have a strong hip flexion. So when I speak about strong hip flexion, it means when your pelvis can freely move forward and back. A lot of us are often in a posterior tilt when we want to try and lift, which is not a bad thing because we do need that core engagement, right? But to test your hip flexion, you want to try and see if that flexion is happening at the junction of the hip here. So by doing this simple exercise, being on your knees and leaning forward, you can already see that I've got quite a good hip flexion. Quite a few of us can compensate through the lower back. So I want to try and keep my back quite straight and neutral, and I don't want to disengage my core either. So I'm going to try and brace a little bit that belly button to the spine. Okay? A really nice and easy exercise to understand. You should actually feel that pinch in your hip flexor. So we want to try and still find engagement in the hip flexor here. So try and like lean forward and elongate yourself and start feeling that engagement in your hip. You will also feel the glutes engaging here. So this is also a thing you would do in a squat and in the deadlift. However, what's important to understand here is how that can really help lifting those legs. The stronger your hip flexors are, the easier your legs are going to lift up. because the next part is what is also going to connect the bottom and the top together. Okay? So your pelvic floor obviously sits just under. It's like a big, really big net that literally holds your lower organs, and it comes and lifts up. So we think of it as a big trampoline net, and we want to lift it from the bottom at the center. So a lot of people always just think like hold the belly button in and suck it in. That's not really what we think. You want to actually think about lifting your belly button upwards. I've done another video on that as well, so that you can check too. Belly button in and up when you exhale. And it's not just about squeezing the bladder and squeezing the perineum and squeezing everything that kind of holds it down there. It's also thinking about lifting, all right? So again, this kind of takes a bit of personal practice because it works with the breath and it works a lot with understanding the engagement. So for that, you can also do some pelvic exercises here, which just let you lie down and placing the hands, and then it's easier to think about lifting that belly button towards your rib cage, lying down, than sitting up. So you can really kind of gently squeeze and tuck slightly that tailbone under, pressing that sort of sacrum, your bony part of the hips, and start feeling that pelvic floor lifting. You can release. And again, we're going to try and lift through the perineum and the pelvic floor. So really think of it coming from the entire bottom part of your body. Yeah. So when we start thinking about getting that hip flexion and that pelvic floor, yeah, so you can start lifting a leg up, which will engage your leg, obviously. That hip flexion here. Yeah. So we're not rounding the back. We are just squeezing into that hip, a bit like you want to do a little hamstring stretch without tucking that tailbone. And you're still going to keep your glutes down the ground. And you're going to lift into your perineum. And you can see already my leg is moving a little bit more forward. So obviously if I do a full glute bridge, my leg is going to come far forward. However, here, I just want you to try and bring that awareness. So squeezing and pulling that pelvic floor. Try and do it in several steps. We do the hip flexor, squeeze it here, and then we do the pelvic floor. Nice. So you want to try and do this a few times. The last one, I'm going to stay down here. We have done the shoulder blades. Yeah, so that protraction, that lift. Yeah, so kind of looking a bit like this when we start and invert. Yeah, so from the floor. And the last part is connecting both top and bottom. Yeah, so we've got hip flexor, we've got perineum and pelvic floor, and we've got the shoulders that protract. And then we want to try and close that rib cage, and we want to try and imagine. I have an injury here. If you don't know, I've been talking about it a lot, but it's a bit difficult for me to do that. Is joining the two bony parts together. So this is what we call the hollowing of the body. Yeah, hollowing of the body is very often kind of not misunderstood, but because you want to try and understand how it comes from the top to the bottom, hollowing the body is much harder to implement with the right technique that people assume. Yeah, so that's why I broke down from the top, then the bottom, and then we close those two big structures together and bring that whole powerhouse in the hollow. So we bring that belly button up, the pelvic floor, and then we want to close the sternum down, and close that rib cage down. So imagine that your pelvis and your rib cage want to meet each other. And then your shoulder blades are going to hold together. So eventually, yeah, that hollow body is going to start looking a bit more technically correct. Yeah, a lot of people just let go too much here. Now we want to really focus on this first. So that's why I quite like making people start their hollow body in this position first. Yeah, so I'm adjusting here to keep on squeezing into my flexion. And then often, obviously I teach this in Pilates, but a lot of people are too quick to lower the legs without understanding appropriate engagement of that pelvic floor. So even for me, I don't have to go very far to understand the hollow body position here. All right, so this is your classic alignment. Again, because of my injury in my obliques, I struggle to actually do the hollow. It is quite highly demanding on my abs right now. So again, I want to try and understand the connection, bottom, my core and my shoulder blades. So you see how I turned into a flexion as well. So external rotation, biceps out, which is what you want to do. And then slowly try and find your hip flexors as well and your pelvic floor. Yes. All right, so I hope that helped you understand a little bit more the technical aspect of your alignment. What you have to think is even engaging that anterior chain, right? So we discussed that anterior chain when we do mostly invert, but even when you do front balance, you still want, obviously we're going to discuss in another video, I'm going to talk about the posterior chain, but you still want to also lift that belly button, like you would do a plank, yeah? You still want to try and bring that belly button in, pushing that pubic bone. Obviously here I'm squeezing the glutes as well. And extending the legs, engaging the hip flexor. Even in your front balance, we want to try and avoid letting go. We want to close everything in. Okay, so quite important to still think, even in an extension of your spine, closing that rib cage and that pelvis towards each other, which can take a bit of practice. This is what often is the hardest thing. I see very, very often people disengaging that powerhouse in the anterior chain, the front of the body. So I hope that helped in understanding, and I can't wait to see how you practice and what you find. If you found this helpful, let me know. And there will be more videos like this, educational videos, so keep looking up. And thank you for subscribing and following as well, and sharing to those who need it. I will see you in the next video.